I recently found myself at dinner with 5 colleagues when one of them, who proudly labeled himself, the office foodie, kept interrupting our conversations to critique or extol various dishes. His comments were often delivered in a grandiose manner, and he had a penchant for probing us with intricate questions about our culinary preferences. It became a bit tiresome, especially when he would dismiss others' food experiences with a casual wave of his hand, claiming they were overrated. During one of these interruptions, while we were enjoying a discussion about the latest Dune series on HBO, he turned to me and asked about my favorite food experience. Feeling a bit mischievous, I decided to throw him a curveball. Instead of sharing a typical food memory, I declared that my absolute favorite food was plain raw celery. I explained that every time I eat it, which is daily, it feels like a tie for the best experience I've ever had. His reaction was priceless. It was as if his brain had momentarily short-circuited. He paused, clearly taken aback, and then attempted a forced laugh, asking if I was serious. It was amusing to see how my simple declaration had thrown him off his game, and it certainly made for a memorable moment at the dinner table. I want to share that I took an acting class during my college years, about 2 decades ago, and recently decided to revive those skills. I fully embraced the role of a person whose favorite food is celery, passionately discussing its unparalleled flavor. I described raw celery as the epitome of taste, the ultimate crispiness, and elaborated on its notes of green and hints of water, going on at length about my admiration for it. As I continued, my friend grew increasingly frustrated, challenging me with a barrage of other foods, questioning whether I truly preferred raw celery over them. I remained committed to my character, even jokingly referring to myself as Mr. Celery from my previous job. The situation escalated when he exclaimed, "This is outrageous," and slammed his fist on the table, creating an awkward silence that followed. I could see the realization on his face that perhaps he had overreacted, but instead of addressing it, he simply muttered, and walked away. Now, my colleagues are suggesting that I took the joke too far, and for reasons I can't quite explain, I decided to maintain the act in front of everyone else. This has left me in a peculiar position where I must continue to pretend that celery is indeed my favorite food for the foreseeable future. I never intended to upset anyone or annoy my coworkers, and while I feel a sense of responsibility to apologize, I find myself questioning whether I am in the wrong here.
Now to the next story. AITA for forcing my niece and nephew to participate in nightly sit-down dinners with the rest of the family while they're here.
Is it wrong of me to insist that my niece and nephew join our family for dinner every night while they're visiting? Growing up, family dinners were a staple in my household. We often gathered around the table, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company, despite the occasional late arrival or scheduling conflict. This tradition has shaped my values, and I've always envisioned creating a similar environment for my own family. Currently, my niece and nephew are staying with us while their parents are away on business. I believe it's important for them to participate in our family dinners, just as my children do. While I don't expect them to engage in conversation if they don't feel like it, I do want them to be present at the table. My oldest son sometimes prefers to listen rather than speak, but he still values the time spent together, and I hope my niece and nephew can find comfort in that too. However, they've expressed their frustration to their mother, feeling overwhelmed by what they perceive as strict rules. They are accustomed to a more relaxed environment at home, often eating while distracted by screens. While I understand their perspective, I also see the value in fostering connections during mealtime. I've noticed my nephew starting to warm up to the idea, even taking the initiative to chat with me while I cook, which brings me joy. I hope that with time, they can appreciate the experience of shared meals as much as I do. I have a few basic guidelines for the kids, primarily focusing on the importance of completing their homework before diving into leisure activities. I also make sure that snacks are served in controlled portions. While I'm okay with them enjoying a larger serving, I want to avoid mindless munching straight from the bag. Additionally, I enforce a rule about turning off electronics after a certain hour to help ensure they get a good night's sleep. Of course, there are times when exceptions can be made, especially if they have important commitments like school projects that might take precedence over our usual dinner routine. My niece seems to struggle the most with these rules. She often argues that it's not a big deal to scroll through her phone during dinner, and she gets quite upset when I ask her to put it away. It's challenging to navigate this situation, as I want to respect her feelings while also maintaining the boundaries I've set for the household. Overall, I don't see these guidelines as overly strict, especially since they'll be staying with us for another month. However, I recognize that my perspective might be different from theirs, which is why I wanted to reach out and gather some thoughts on the matter. Balancing rules with understanding can be tricky, and I appreciate any insights on how to approach this.
Thank you for watching. Please let us know what you feel about the stories in the comment section. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the story that may become your favorite.